Hello and welcome everyone. Today we are going to start another session which is on ChatGPT, and today I'm going to show you how to design or structure the layout of your systematic literature review paper using ChatGPT. Okay, so like yesterday, if you have seen this video which I did yesterday, which was about structuring a journal paper. So, and today is going to be a literature review or a systematic literature review paper. So the difference, there is a significant difference in how the systematic literature review paper is structured, and we will go through that through a number of different prompts that will show you how to design or structure your systematic literature review paper. One thing that a lot of you asked me yesterday was, is it okay to use ChatGPT or whether it is considered as cheating or not? So I want to clarify that in today's session, that what I'm covering in the session is to show you how to create a structure of your paper. I'm not using ChatGPT to generate the content for the paper. So I want to be very clear that it is not considered cheating if you're just trying to understand how a paper should be structured. The same information you can also get by looking at a lot of other existing published systematic literature review papers, right? So what we are doing by using ChatGPT is just speeding up that process and ensuring that we cover all possible things that have to be covered in the systematic literature review paper, right? So we are only getting ideas and directions on how to structure the paper, not how to write the paper. Yeah. So be very clear that I'm not using ChatGPT to write your research paper, but to structure. So I will be looking at what are the headings we need, what are the subheadings we need, and the purpose of doing this or developing this layout is because you need to know that these are all the sections and subsections that are required for any good quality SLR paper that has to be published in a Q1 ranked journal, right? So you need to know that these are the 20 different things or 30 different things that a paper should include. Yeah, so that is the purpose, that is the intention of covering running these sessions. So I'm in no way promoting the use of ChatGPT for writing the content, but I am saying that you can use it for researching and getting some guidance on what needs to be done, not what you should do and what you should write. Okay, so let's get started. What I would want you all to do after we finish the session is go to the description of this video. You will find a link to access the Google Doc that we are going to use in this because that Google Doc will have all the prompts that I'm going to use in today's session. So sign up to that and then follow step-by-step instructions that I'm covering in this session today on ChatGPT. And what I'm covering today will work on ChatGPT in the free version as well. I will be using ChatGPT 4, but it does not matter because this is basic ChatGPT content only. However, I would suggest you could get ChatGPT 4 or ChatGPT Plus because it will help you to do other kind of research where you can upload PDF files and ask questions from that. So, but anyway, that is not what I'm covering today. Today's focus is how to structure the SLR paper. All right. So let us begin with this. I want to share my screen. So here you can see this ChatGPT window, and I will also show you this, which is the Google Doc that we are going to use. I'll zoom it a bit more so it's clear to you all, and maybe close this, make it 200%. All right, okay. So what I have got you today is 27 different prompts that we will use to effectively structure. I want to highlight this. Maybe I'll make this in a different color. Yeah, we are going to structure your SLR paper. Yeah. And these are all the different prompts that we will use for different sections. So we will start with the starting prompt, that is to create a layout for the SLR paper, which will have the different sections like introduction, prior literature review, methodology, results, and discussion. Okay, so there are many sections in the paper. You can see there are many prompts in the for different sections, and we will go through each of these prompts. Okay, so the first prompt that I want is to start this, which is I want to write a systematic literature review paper. I need a paper layout. Mention all the main sections and subsections that should be included in a SLR. So let's copy this. And I'm going to paste this here. Okay, so it is started to create the structure of the paper. So you can see the title, author name, affiliation, abstract should have background, objectives, methods, results, conclusion, like a typical structured abstract. 3 to 6 keywords. Introduction should have a background, research objectives, methodology should have all these different subsections. So you can see protocol registration, eligibility criteria, information sources, search strategy, so on. We will go through that in detail. In the results section, you need to mention the study selection, study characteristics, risk of bias, results of individual studies, synthesis of results. And then a discussion section, which will have summary of evidence, limitations, conclusions of the review findings, and overall last section, which will be the conclusion of the overall thesis, the overall SLR paper. Or you should also have a section on references plus a section on appendices where you can provide a list of all the data that you have collected or tables that you have added, which you do not want to put it in the main layout, main section of the paper. Okay, so we will go here now. So we have done this first bit. We'll now go to the second prompt, which is, can you elaborate the introduction section? I think there should be some more sections within introduction. So we are asking, what are some of the other sections that introduction should have? So now it is starting to give us the layout of the introduction section. You can have a background and a rationale section, which covers the context, importance, relevance. A problem statement section, which identifies the problem that you are going to solve, or what is the research question that your SLR is going to address. Specific issues or questions. Next is, what are the main objectives of your systematic literature review, and what are the research questions? Yeah, so you may have one or more objectives, and you may have one or more research questions. You also have the option to give the scope of the review, which means you have to mention what is it within the scope and what is outside the scope. Yeah, so that it is clear to the reviewers later when the paper goes for review that what are the boundaries of your SLR paper. You are then expected to have a section on significance of the review where you mention contribution to knowledge. So what is it that your review is going to add to the existing knowledge in this discipline, in this area? And what are the brief expected outcomes? So mentioning what you expect to find or achieve through your systematic review. This could be a question to solving a disputed question, proving a certain theory, or consolidating information on a complex issue. So depending upon what your systematic literature review is trying to answer, you can mention that after completing the SLR, we expect to have the following outcomes. Yeah. Similarly, when you write this section, you can say we expect that there will be the following contributions that our SLR will make. Okay, so that is the introduction layout of your introduction section. Okay, so background and rationale. Sometimes I also like to add some statistics in this section. Yeah, because the benefit is that you are showing the, or either here or maybe in problem statement, because we want to show that the problem that you are going to answer, or the question that you are going to answer through this SLR is significant, because maybe it affects 1 billion people around the world, or it is worth millions or billions of dollars to know the answer for such a question. So yeah, if you put some statistics, it justifies the purpose of conducting this research. Okay, so this was the introduction. Let's go back to our Google Doc. Now, one thing you have to do in the systematic literature review within the introduction section or as a separate section is to have a section on prior literature review, right? And what that means is you have to mention some of the existing SLR papers that are published in your discipline, right? So that you can say, or you can show that your SLR is different or it is better. So here, can you elaborate the prior literature review section? I think there should be some more sections within prior literature review, and how should I structure this section? So here it says, it helps readers understand the existing knowledge, identifies gaps in the current research, and demonstrate the novelty and necessity of your review. So this is important, that by doing this, by including this important section in your SLR, you are showing the need for doing this SLR. Yeah, otherwise the first question the reviewer may ask is, oh, this has already been done in another SLR. Have you looked at that? So before that happens, you need to look at existing literature reviews and make sure that you have covered that bit. Okay. So this is the layout of your prior literature review section. General overview, themes and trends. Identify major themes, trends, and areas of focus that have emerged over time in previous studies. This helps to categorize existing literature into coherent groups for better understanding. Discuss methodological approaches previously used to address the research question. This could include various study designs, methods. Sometimes what happens is the research question that you want to answer may have been already answered by somebody else in another SLR paper. But you could say that their study, you could show how your study is going to be different from a methodological point of view. You could say you're going to cover more papers, you are going to cover different types of papers. So all these variations you have to make it clear so that it is understood that your research is different and how it is different. You also provide the strengths and weaknesses of the existing research papers, any consistencies and discrepancies that you may identify through this. Unaddressed areas, identify and articulate areas that have not been addressed sufficiently by previous research. So this is a way to kind of show the gap. So you remember here, we are showing the gap of in the existing research. Yeah. So imagine there are 10 SLR papers published. You want to write your SLR paper. You have to show that these 10 SLR papers do not address the research question that you are addressing. That is first. Or you have to show that one of the papers has addressed your research question, but they haven't done a good job. Yeah. So you have to have valid reason for doing this SLR. Reasons for gaps. Offer insights into why gaps may exist based on the evolution of the field and so on. Relevance of the current study. So what you're trying to do here is you are giving the background that is needed to justify the need for conducting this SLR. And this justification is very important because that kind of shows the purpose. Otherwise, you're just wasting time, right? If somebody has already done it, you're replicating it, there is no point. Yeah. So justification of the review. If you are going to use any theories or models or conceptual framework, you can mention that here. But I don't see much of this very common, but it is possible in some papers they do. Synthesis of findings. Synthesize the findings from prior literature review to present a coherent state of field. So you can say we evaluated 10 existing SLR papers and this is what they covered. However, they did not cover this, this and this, which is why we want to cover this. Okay. Preparation for next section. Conclude by linking how this literature review sets the stage for the methods and analysis you will use in your SLR. Okay. So that is your second section of your SLR paper, which is on prior literature review. There is also an option here to generate or create some tables, which I haven't created a prompt, but let's try it now. So this is an example of a table that you can suggest that this is an SLR paper, Smith et al. The objective of this was to do this, or the scope was this. The methodology that they followed was this. These were the findings and these were the conclusions. So here it should not be a survey. It should actually be an SLR. So here you could say that they selected 20 papers or 100 papers when they conducted their SLR, and these papers were, say, published in the range of last 5 years, so from 2019 to 2024, something like that. So these kind of tables you can create. Identified gaps, relevant studies. So here is another table that you can show multiple SLRs who have identified a specific gap in the research, yeah, and how they have addressed it, if they have. Okay, so it has given many examples. We will move on because we have a lot to cover. So I have added that prompt here. It was not there before. Now we are going to move to the methodology section. So methodology section is quite comprehensive. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to run through all these methodological prompts. You can try it in your own time, but I have the prompts here for you to work out. Well, we will start with a couple. So now what I'm asking is, can you elaborate the methodology section? I think there should be some more sections within methodology. And when I say I think there should be some more sections, this is in reference to what was provided in the first prompt. Yeah. So let's run this. So we have protocol and registration. So you can have two sections here, description and purpose. Mention if the review protocol was registered with any registry. In some disciplines, you need to do that. Explain why the protocol was registered and how this enhances the credibility and reproducibility of the review. Then you have to mention the inclusion and exclusion criteria. Many a time students get confused between these two. What is inclusion and what is exclusion? Sometimes they write, we will only include all the papers that are published in English as an inclusion, and then they go and write exclusion criteria as we will not include any papers which are not written in English. So that does not make sense. So how to do it properly, you need to understand. But the purpose of this video is you need to know that you have to have these two sections. Next is information sources. So you have to mention the databases and any other sources that you have used to access the paper. Search time frame. How many years you are going to search the literature from and why. What keywords are you going to use? What search strings you are going to use? Which databases you are going to use? What algorithm, or basically the search string that you are going to include is here. Then study selection. How are you going to screen? So you have to explain the process of screening. How are you going to do the full text review? What are the selection tools that you're going to use? And conflict resolution. What happens if there are 5 members in the SLR team and they do not agree on a paper? How are you going to resolve that problem? So you have to explain that. Not how you are, how you have, because you're reporting your study results, right? Then data extraction, data collection process. How are you going to what data you're going to extract? How you're going to manage that extracted data? What tools you are going to use, like Excel, coherence, and so on. What data items are going to be extracted, such as specific variables that you're going to extract. or maybe studies from some specific authors and so on. So whatever data you're going to extract, you have to mention that this is the data that we are going to extract. Risk of bias, so this is also important. You need to cover selection bias, detection bias, attrition, reporting biases. So this becomes quite important if your research is in the medical space. Then you're going to mention how you're going to synthesize the result. What are your approaches? So if you're going to do qualitative thematic analysis, you have to mention that this is what we are going to do, and so on. If you're going to do sensitivity analysis, you have to explain the reason for conducting sensitivity analysis, and so on. Okay, so that was the first one. Then I added this prompt. You all can try this. What is the difference between inclusion and exclusion criteria? Can you give me or explain this with an example? So sometimes you will get situations where the inclusion and exclusion is similar to what I just example that I gave before. Include English papers and exclude papers in other languages. So it means the same thing. So for that I have given this prompt. Isn't exclusion criteria opposite of exclusion? Inclusion criteria opposite of exclusion criteria? Just test ChatGPT to see what kind of responses it gives. Then this seems clear in medical research. So I ran this query before, and then they gave me examples from medical research where the inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria was clear, right? It was very easy. So then I gave this query, this prompt. This seems clear in medical research. How about business or management research? Give me an example or show me the difference. So it gave me some example there. So you can also try and run this prompt. Then I said this seems, so this was for business and management research. I'll just bold this. And then I said, okay, let me try some other research. So I put software engineering or information technology. And I got some response from ChatGPT. Then I said, in this example, I could say that the inclusion criteria is projects involving minimum 5-member teams or projects that last less than 1 month. In this case, should I remove the exclusion criteria? So what had happened was when I gave this query, the exclusion criteria was that if the team involves less than 5 members, yeah, then the that becomes an exclusion criteria. So you should only include teams that are 5 or more. But so then I said, why not I just put this as an inclusion criteria? So should I remove exclusion criteria after that? And then I tried tweaking the prompt over and over again to try to understand or the best possible exclusion criteria that I could use. So these are some examples you can try. This was okay. The next thing that you need to know, so you can try all these other prompts. What should be included in the validity of the methodology? Yeah, this is important and sometimes is missed in the paper, and I often find this is missing. So in the validity of methodology, this is what you need to cover. Exhaustiveness, search terms and keywords, clearly defined inclusion exclusion criteria, dual review, piloted forms. So this did not come up, remember, earlier in the methodology section. Quality assessment tools. So some things are repeated, some things are unique. Yeah, so you can merge those things. The next thing that you should do is this. Is prompt number 16. Is this same as validity threats? So if you know what a validity threat is, you can understand this. If you do not know, then it may be something that you could also learn. So validity threats, if you see, typically refers to potential weaknesses or challenges that undermine the validity of your study's findings. Yeah. So this is how the validity, the threats to validity are reported in the SLR paper. So you need to write internal validity, external validity, construct validity, conclusion validity, and so on. And it is also providing you with some strategies for addressing validity threats. So basically what we have to show is that our research methodology is stringent, is very rigorous. So we have taken all possible steps to make it strong. However, if there are some weaknesses that can come during this SLR, we have taken steps to ensure that these threats do not impact the validity of our SLR, which is why it is called as validity threats. Okay. Sorry, I did not share this screen. So this is what came up when we were searching validity threats. Yeah. You can check it out later. I'll share the link to this chat. The next thing that you need to know is this bit, which is quality assessment. What should be the detailed subsections required when writing quality assessment in the methodology? So let's go and put that here. So we are selecting the prompt number 17 and now going to ChatGPT. So we are looking at quality assessment. So you have to start with a section on introduction to quality assessment, description of quality assessment tools that you are going to use, a scoring system, tool selection for specific, for qualitative, quantitative, mixed methods. How are you going to assess the quality? Quality assessment process. So you have to explain this process and then you have to follow this process when you're doing your research. Risk of bias, we covered this earlier. Handling out the study quality in data synthesis. Threshold for inclusion, exclusion, threshold, influence on weighing. So all these things are needed. The next thing we have to look for is the data extraction plan. So for that, you can use this prompt number 18. So we asked here what should be the detailed subsections within the data extraction plan for the methodology. Okay, so detailed section, as you can see, the purpose, the overview, data extraction tools and software, which software you are going to use. You can use Excel, you can use coherence, and now there are even other AI tools that I will cover in future videos. Data extraction team, who is going to extract the data? Are they going to be provided any training on how to extract the data? What data items you are going to extract from each study? What is the rationale for extracting this data? Are you going to design any forms for extracting this? What is going to be the step-by-step procedure for data extraction? Who is going to do this? Who is going to do quality checks? If some data is missing or incomplete, what will you do? Are you going to contact the authors of those studies and ask for that information? How are you going to prepare the data for synthesis, for coding or preparatory analysis, and continuous improvement? Outline the plans for reviewing and potentially updating the data extraction based on initial findings or feedback, and keep a record of everything. So you have to record and document everything that you are doing or that you are progressing with. Okay, now let's go to the results section. Let's take this prompt. Can you elaborate the results section? So we have said, can you elaborate the results section? I think there should be some more sections. So this will give us what are the subsections that we need in the results when you're writing the results of your SLR. So this is where a lot of tables, figures, and charts can be generated, right? So while this is review is going, we'll come back to this prompt sheet, and there are some other prompts that I have generated here, right? What type of tables do researchers include when reporting their findings? So you can run this prompt. Can you draw 2 sample tables from the 9 suggested above showing what can be included? So when I ran this, it gave me 9 suggestions. So you can also run and see how many suggestions you get, and then you can ask it to create some sample tables. What steps should I follow for this data aggregation, summarization, and analysis? Give me subsections for this. So this was the related to this one. So when you run this, you can follow with this query. So similar to tables, I also said, what type of figures do researchers include? Give me some suggestions. Can you draw these figures for me? So ChatGPT cannot draw the figures, but it can give you code that you can use in some of the designing softwares. So let's see our results here for the research results section. So we saw the study selection, study characteristics we saw, narrative description, accompanying the table with a narrative description highlighting important or notable characteristics of the studies, risk of bias within studies, results of individual studies, synthesizing of the results, what are the main findings, what are the groups or subgroups, whether you have done sensitivity analysis, you can mention that. If you're doing meta-analysis, then you can also cover that, and so on. So these are the this is what the content for your findings section should be. And then yeah, there are a few other things. If you do not know what is sensitivity analysis or publication bias, you may want to search that as well. And we now come to the last prompt that I would like you to show. And this prompt is, can you elaborate the discussion section? So we have completed the results section. Now we are going to the discussion section and see what would be the contents for this, or the layout or the structure for the discussion section. So in discussions, you can typically analyze your results. Yeah, why you got these results? What does it mean? You can include the, so this was the interpretation that I was mentioning. You can interpret your results. You can mention the implications, practical implications, theoretical implications, managerial or practical implication is same. You can mention the different implications of your study, the strengths and limitations of your study. Bias we have already covered. Comparison with prior reviews, this is important. If you're comparing your findings are better than other reviews, then you can mention that here. Provide guidelines for future research. What needs to be done. Sometimes it is also a good idea to recommend additional SLRs that should be done in your future research. Did they mention limitations somewhere? Oh yeah, limitations, strengths and limitations. So limitations of your study has to be covered here. And finally, the conclusion of your paper. Okay, so all this that you can see here will give you the layout or the content for writing your systematic literature review paper. It will give you the structure, and for under each section or subsection, what should be covered. Yeah, so that I have not covered yet. So that will be what I will be covering tomorrow. Okay, so today's session was to give you the layout of the SLR paper, the sections and subsections. Tomorrow we will look at for each subsection what should be written. Yeah, so I will have some pointers for you to help you with that. All right, so that is all in today's session. Thank you very much for attending this session. Please do follow my YouTube channel, and these videos are also there on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And do share these videos with others who may benefit from these videos. And thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.